The doorbell rang at exactly 2:17 p.m., and through the peephole, Jessica's blood turned to ice. There I stood, holding a small wrapped gift, wearing my best Sunday dress and the kind of smile that promised trouble. She pressed her back against the door, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the deadbolt she'd just locked moments before. "Mom, who's at the door?" My son David called from the living room, where 8-year-old Jake's birthday party was in full swing. The sound of children laughing and party music filled the house, my house, though Jessica had no idea about that little detail yet. Through the door, I could hear her ragged breathing. "Nobody important," she lied, her voice cracking like thin ice. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not today. Not after what she'd put me through these past 6 months. I knocked again. 3 gentle taps that might as well have been thunder. "Jessica, dear," I called sweetly. "I know you're there. We need to talk." The silence stretched between us like a loaded gun. Inside, I could hear Jake asking if someone was at the door, his young voice bright with birthday excitement. My heart clenched. 6 months since I'd last seen my grandson. 6 months since Jessica decided I was no longer worthy of his love. "Go away, Eleanor," she whispered through the door. "You're not welcome here. I told you in the text." Oh, that text. The message that had landed in my phone 3 days ago like a slap across the face. "Don't come to Jake's birthday. You're not welcome anymore. Find somewhere else." To be on Saturday. Just like that. 8 years of being Grammy Eleanor. 8 years of bedtime stories. And scrape me kisses, erased with 43 cruel words. But Jessica had made one crucial mistake. She'd forgotten exactly who she was dealing with. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I share stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Before we dive into today's incredible tale, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from all corners of the globe. Now let's get back. The lock clicked and the door cracked open just wide enough for Jessica to peer out with one terrified eye. When she saw my calm expression, that door slammed shut faster than a mousetrap. "You can't be here," she hissed through the wood. "David will call the police." I chuckled softly, adjusting my purse strap. Inside that purse sat a manila envelope, one that would change everything in about 5 minutes. But Jessica didn't need to know that yet. "Will he really?" I asked. "Call the police on his own mother? At his son's birthday party? In front of all those neighborhood families?" I paused, letting that sink in. That would certainly make for interesting conversation at the school pickup line. Through the door, I heard her sharp intake of breath. Jessica prided herself on appearances, on being the perfect suburban mother with the perfect suburban life. The thought of causing a scene in front of the other parents was her worst nightmare. The deadbolt turned again. This time, the door opened wider, revealing Jessica's pale face and the fake smile she'd mastered for social situations. Behind her, I caught glimpses of colorful balloons and heard Jake's laughter mixing with other children's voices. 5 minutes, she said through gritted teeth. "Then you leave." "Oh, I don't think I'll be leaving quite that soon," I replied, stepping past her into the foyer. The house looked exactly as I'd imagined. Pinterest-perfect decorations, organic snacks arranged on artisanal platters, everything designed to impress the other mothers. What Jessica didn't know was that every single item in this house, from the crown molding to the organic birthday cake, had been paid for with my money. "Grammy Eleanor." Jake's voice cut through the tension like sunshine through storm clouds. He barreled around the corner, his face lighting up with pure joy. 8 years old, and still small enough to wrap his arms around my waist in a bear hug that nearly knocked me over. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I whispered, holding him tight and fighting back tears. 6 months felt like 6 years when you were missing pieces of a child's life. He'd grown taller. His face had thinned out, and there was a gap where his front tooth used to be. "I didn't think you were coming," he said, looking up at me with David's eyes and my late husband's stubborn chin. "Mom said you were busy." Over his head, I caught Jessica's panicked expression. She was realizing that making a scene now in front of her son and his friends would only make things worse. "I wouldn't miss your birthday for the world," I said, handing him the small wrapped box. This is just a little something I picked up. He tore into the wrapping paper with 8-year-old enthusiasm, revealing a simple wooden train whistle, the same kind his father had loved at that age. The kind I'd given David 35 years ago, before Jessica decided I wasn't fit to be part of their family. Cool. Listen to this. Jake blew the whistle, and its clear, sharp note cut through the party. Chatter. Several adults turned to look, and I saw Jessica's face flush with embarrassment. Jake, why don't you go show your friends your new whistle? Jessica said quickly, her voice tight with forced cheer. Grammy Eleanor was just leaving. Actually, I said, settling into the living room like I owned the place, which, as it happened, I did. I think I'll stay for a bit. It's not every day my grandson turns 8. The color drained from Jessica's face completely. You can't. We discussed this. You're not. What's all the commotion? David appeared in the doorway, and the sight of him made my heart ache. My son looked tired, older than his 34 years, with stress lines I didn't remember from our last conversation 6 months ago. Hi, sweetheart, I said, standing to hug him. For just a moment, he relaxed into the embrace, like the little boy he used to be. Then he remembered the situation and pulled away. Mom, what are you doing here? Jessica said she told you not to come. She did, but sometimes a grandmother has to make difficult choices. I reached into my purse and felt the manila envelope's reassuring weight. Besides, there are some things we need to discuss. Important things. Jessica stepped between us, her face flushed with anger. This is not the time or place. There are guests here, children. Yes, there are, I agreed. And they're all enjoying a lovely party in a beautiful home. Such a shame if anything were to disrupt this perfect afternoon. The threat was subtle but clear. Jessica's eyes narrowed, trying to read my expression, trying to figure out what card I was holding. She'd always underestimated me, treated me like some doddering old woman who could be pushed aside when convenient. She was about to learn how wrong she'd been. David looked between us, confusion and frustration warring on his face. Can we please not do this here? Mom, maybe you should. Should what? Leave my grandson's birthday party? Miss another milestone in his life? Because your wife has decided I'm persona non grata. My voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. I don't think so, David. In the living room, Jake was showing off his whistle to a group of kids, his happiness infectious. Watching him laugh with his friends, I strengthened my resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about a little boy who deserved to know his grandmother. You're making this awkward for everyone, Jessica hissed, glancing toward the living room, where other parents were starting to notice the tension. Can't you just respect our wishes? For once. Respect, I repeated softly, like the respect you showed when you changed the locks, without telling me, or the respect you demonstrated when you blocked my phone number, so I couldn't call to check on Jake when he had pneumonia last month. David's head snapped up. Wait, what? Jake had pneumonia? When? Jessica's face went through several shades of red. It was just a chest cold. He was fine. Your mother is being dramatic. A chest cold that kept him out of school for 2 weeks and required antibiotics, I corrected. I only found out because his teacher mentioned it at the grocery store. Imagine how I felt, learning about my grandson's illness from a stranger in the cereal aisle. How did you know it was 2 weeks? David asked, his voice sharp with suspicion. And how did you know about the antibiotics? This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I reached into my purse and pulled out the manila envelope, holding it like the weapon it was about to become. Because, my dear son, there are quite a few things about your life that you don't know I know. The envelope crackled as I opened it, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Jessica took a step back, her face going from red to white in the span of a heartbeat. Mom, what is that? David asked, but his voice had changed. There was a note of dread creeping in, like he was beginning to suspect that this conversation was about to take a turn he wasn't prepared for. Quick pause in the story here. Are you enjoying this wild tale so far? If you are, please, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around to see how this plays out. The twist coming up is absolutely incredible. I pulled out the first document, a bank statement with highlighted entries going back 18 months. The look on Jessica's face told me she knew exactly what she was seeing. This is interesting reading, I said conversationally, holding up the paper so David could see the figures. Monthly mortgage payments of $2,847 every single month, paid from an account that isn't yours, David, and certainly isn't Jessica's. David's face went blank as he tried to process what he was seeing. I don't understand. Our mortgage is through automatic withdrawal from our joint account. No, sweetheart, it's not. I pulled out another document. It's paid through automatic withdrawal from MY account. It has been for the past 3 years. The silence that followed was deafening. In the living room, children's laughter continued, oblivious to the bomb that had just exploded in the foyer. That's impossible, David said weakly, but he was staring at the bank statements with growing comprehension. We handle our own finances. We pay our own bills. Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it again, looking like a fish out of water. Jessica, I said gently, would you like to explain to David how this arrangement came about? Or shall I? Arrangement. David's voice was rising, despite his obvious effort to keep it low. What? Arrangement? Mom, what the hell is going on? I looked at Jessica, giving her one last chance to confess. When she remained silent, I sighed and pulled out the next document, a legal contract with both our signatures at the bottom. 3 years ago, when you were both struggling with the mortgage payments after David's company downsized, Jessica came to me. She was panicked about losing the house, about Jake having to change schools. She begged me to help. David's face was cycling through emotions, confusion, disbelief, and a growing anger. Jessica, is this true? She finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. It was supposed to be temporary. Temporary, I repeated. Yes, that's what you said. A loan to help you get back on your feet. But when I offered to write you a check, you said that wouldn't work. You needed something more discreet. I handed David the contract. His hand shook as he read it. You see, son, Jessica didn't want you to know that we were struggling financially. She said it would hurt your pride, damage your marriage. So we worked out this arrangement. I would take over the mortgage payments, and in exchange, the deed would be transferred to my name as collateral. David's face had gone completely white. The deed, you mean? I mean this house legally belongs to me, I said simply. Has for 3 years. I've been allowing you to live in it rent-free while paying all the expenses, mortgage, property taxes, homeowners insurance. Every cent of it. The manila envelope wasn't empty yet. I pulled out utility bills, insurance statements, even receipts for home repairs. A paper trail of my financial support that painted a very clear picture. $27,000 last year alone, I continued. The new roof after the hail. Storm? Mine. The HVAC system that died in July. Mine. Even the landscaping that Jessica insisted would improve the curb appeal of what she thought was her house. David was staring at Jessica now with an expression I'd never seen before. Raw betrayal, mixed with humiliation and anger. You lied to me, he said, his voice barely controlled. For 3 years, you've been lying to me. David, I can explain. Explain what? That my wife has been keeping me in financial bondage to my mother. Without my knowledge, that every month for 3 years, I've been celebrating paying our mortgage when it was never our mortgage at all. In the living room, someone noticed the tension and turned down the music. The party was starting to wind down naturally. Parents beginning to collect their children and gather birthday party favors. Perfect timing. But here's the really interesting part, I said, reaching into the envelope one more time. The part that happened just 6 months ago. I pulled out a printed email chain, messages between Jessica and a real estate agent. It seems that around the same time, Jessica decided I was no longer welcome in my grandson's life. She was also making inquiries about selling the house. David grabbed the papers, his face going through a range of expressions as he read. You were trying to sell? Without telling me. The email chain was damning. Jessica discussing market values, asking about quick sales, even getting a preliminary assessment done while David was at work. The best part, I said, unable to keep a note of satisfaction out of my voice, is this email where Jessica asked the realtor how to handle the sale when the deed isn't in her name. The realtor's response is quite educational. David read aloud, his voice hollow. If you don't hold the deed, you cannot legally sell the property. You'll need written permission from the actual owner or have them present for the closing. The puzzle pieces were falling into place. Jessica's sudden hostility toward me, her insistence that I was interfering in their family, her desperate attempts to cut me out of Jake's life completely. You were trying to force me to sign over the deed, I said. Cut me out of Jake's life until I was so desperate to see him that I'd give you the house just to have access to my grandson. Jessica's face crumpled. It wasn't like that. We needed our independence. David deserved to own his own home, with profits from selling MY House. I asked, that's an interesting definition of independence. The party had definitely quieted down. Through the archway, I could see parents gathering. Their children, some glancing toward our conversation with obvious curiosity. Jake appeared at David's side, his face scrunched with concern. Dad, why does everyone look sad? It's my birthday. David knelt down to Jake's eye level, and I watched my son struggle to compose himself for his child's sake. Everything's okay, buddy. The grown-ups just need to talk about some boring stuff. Can Grammy Eleanor stay for cake? Jake asked hopefully. She just got here and I want to show her my other presents. Over Jake's head, David's eyes met mine. For the first time in 6 months, there was no coldness there. No distant politeness. Just my son, looking lost and hurt and asking for guidance. Grammy Eleanor can stay as long as she wants, David said quietly. This is her house. Jake's face lit up with confusion and delight. Grammy's house? Cool. Does that mean she can come over whenever she wants? Yes, sweetheart, I said, reaching down to ruffle his hair. It means Grammy can come over whenever she wants. The last of the party guests were filtering out, parents calling goodbyes and thank yous over their shoulders. Soon it would be just family, what was left of it, anyway. Jessica was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. I just wanted us to have our own life. At my expense, I said. At Jake's expense. You were willing to deprive that little boy of his grandmother just to maintain a lie. David stood up, his jaw set with a determination I recognized from his childhood. When my son made a decision, he stuck to it. Jessica, I think you need to apologize to my mother, he said, and then we need to have a very long conversation about our marriage. But I held up my hand. Actually, David, there's one more thing. I reached into the envelope for the last document, the one I'd been saving for the finale. A quitclaim deed, already prepared and notarized, transferring ownership of the house back to David and Jessica. Their jaws dropped simultaneously. I never wanted to own your house, I explained. I only wanted to help my family and ensure I wouldn't be shut out of my grandson's life. Now that everything's out in the open, there's no need for these games anymore. David's hands shook as he took the deed. Mom, this is worth over $300,000. You're just giving it back. I'm giving it to where it always belonged, but with conditions. Jessica looked up, hope flickering in her tear-stained eyes. Condition 1, I see Jake whenever I want. Condition 2, no more lies between this family, ever. And condition 3, I smiled, looking around the beautiful living room at the birthday, decorations, and the happy chaos of childhood. Jake gets to know that his Grammy Eleanor loves him enough to fight for him. Jake was still standing there, absorbing the conversation with the seriousness that only 8-year-olds can manage. Grammy, does this mean you're not going away anymore? I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. Not ever again. And for the first time in 6 months, that felt like a promise I could keep. The aftermath was messier than the confrontation itself. Jessica and David spent 3 Hours in their bedroom having the kind of argument that penetrates walls and makes neighbors worry. Jake and I sat in the kitchen, eating leftover birthday cake and playing with his new train whistle while the sound of Ray's voices drifted down from upstairs. Are mom and dad getting divorced? He asked with the matter-of-fact tone children use when discussing life-changing events. I don't know, sweetheart, I answered honestly. Sometimes grown-ups have to work through very difficult problems. Like when Tommy's parents got divorced last year? Maybe. But whatever happens, you need to know that it's not your fault, and both your parents love you very much. And so do I. He nodded solemnly, then brightened. Can you teach me how to make that whistle sound? Like a real train. For the next hour, we worked on whistle techniques, and I told him stories about his grandfather and the model train set they built together before Jake was born. Stories Jessica had forbidden me to tell, claiming they were too sad, too focused on the past. But children need their history. They need to know where they came from, who loved them, before they were even born, what legacy they're inheriting. Jake drank in every word, his eyes bright with the hunger kids have for family stories. When David finally came downstairs, his face was haggard but resolved. Jessica followed a few minutes later, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. Mom, David said. Jessica has something she wants to say. Jessica sat down across from me at the kitchen table, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Eleanor, I'm sorry. What I did was wrong. Cutting you out of Jake's life, lying to David about the house, trying to manipulate the situation. All of it. She took a shaky breath. I was jealous, if I'm being honest. Jake adores you. And I felt like I was competing with this perfect grandmother who could swoop in with presents and stories and unconditional love, while I was stuck being the disciplinarian, the one who had to say no to ice cream before dinner and insist on homework before TV. Jessica, let me finish, please. Her voice was stronger now. I convinced myself that you were undermining my authority as Jake's mother, that you were spoiling him and making my job harder. But the truth is, I was scared that if Jake had too many people who loved him unconditionally, he wouldn't need me as much. Jake had been listening to this conversation with the intense, focused children bring to discussions about their own lives. Mom, that's silly, he said. I need everybody. I need you and Dad and Grammy Eleanor. Love isn't like cake. There's not less for everyone when more people have some. The wisdom of 8-year-olds strikes again. Jessica's face crumpled, and she reached over to hug her son. You're absolutely right, baby. Love isn't like cake. David sat down and took my hand. Mom, I need to apologize too. I should have questioned why you suddenly became so distant. I should have fought harder to keep you in our lives. I let Jessica's version of events become the only story, and that was wrong. You trusted your wife, I said. That's what married people should do. Jessica just needed to become worthy of that trust. The clock on the kitchen wall chimed 7 p.m. Jake's birthday was officially over, but something new was beginning. So what happens now? Jessica asked. I pulled the quitclaim deed out of my purse and placed it on the table. Now you both sign this, and I transfer the house back to you. And we start over. Just like that. Jessica's voice was small, uncertain. Just like that. But Jessica, if you ever try to shut me out of Jake's life again, I will use every resource at my disposal to ensure it doesn't happen. I'm 68 years old. I don't have time for games anymore. She nodded, understanding the steel behind my gentle tone. David picked up the deed, staring at it like he couldn't quite believe it was real. Mom, this is too much. The house, just giving it back. David, I don't need a house. I have my own perfectly lovely condo downtown. What I need is my family. What I need is to be part of Jake's life as he grows up. The house was always just a means to an end. But the money you spent, all those mortgage payments, consider it my investment in Jake's future. In all our futures. Jake was starting to yawn, the excitement of the day finally catching up with him. Grammy, Eleanor, will you be here when I wake up tomorrow? Do you want me to be? Yes, please. I want to show you my room and my Lego collection and the tree fort Dad and I built in the backyard. I looked at David and Jessica, raising my eyebrows in question. Of course she'll be here, David said firmly. This is Grammy Eleanor's house too, for as long as she wants it to be. Actually, Jessica said quietly, I was thinking maybe Grammy Eleanor would like to stay in the guest room sometimes. For sleepovers with Jake. If she wants to. It was a small olive branch, but it meant everything. I would love that, I said 2 hours later. After Jake was tucked into bed and David and Jessica had signed the deed transfer, I sat alone in the guest room that would sometimes be mine. Through the window, I could see the tree fort David and Jake had built, the one I'd missed because I'd been banished from their lives. But I was here now. And tomorrow, Jake would show me his Lego collection and tell me about the tree fort, and maybe we'd work on more train whistle techniques. My phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor. How did the birthday party go? Did you follow through with your plan? I smiled and typed back, mission accomplished. Family restored. Love multiplied, not divided. Because that's what this had really been about. Not revenge or proving a point or even reclaiming my financial investment. It had been about love and family and refusing to let fear and jealousy divide what should have been unbreakable bonds. Jake had been right with his 8-year-old wisdom. Love isn't like cake. There's always enough to go around. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of small feet running down the hallway in Jake's voice calling, Grammy Eleanor. Grammy Eleanor, come see my room. I smiled and reached for my robe. Some battles are worth fighting, and some victories are worth every moment of struggle it took to achieve them. This was definitely one of those victories. I hope you enjoyed that incredible story of family, deception, and ultimate redemption. It just goes to show that sometimes the people we trust most can surprise us, and sometimes love really does conquer all, even when it has to fight for its place at the table. What did you think of Eleanor's approach? Was she right to keep the financial arrangement secret until the confrontation? Do you think Jessica's apology was genuine? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and often respond. Personally, if this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please share it with your friends and family. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that remind us what really matters in life. Until next time, remember that family bonds are worth fighting for, even when the fight gets messy. See you in the next story.